Hey everybody, how's it going? Today we're going to be going over and showing you how to install the CURT Trailer Hitch receiver here on our 2018 Buick Regal Tour X. So this is what our trailer hitch looks like installed here on our Regal. Now it does have a hidden design, meaning the cross tube is actually tucked up behind the bumper here. So the only thing we are going to be able to see is the receiver tube. It also has a nice black powder coated finish, which is going to do a great job of helping protect the hitch from rust and corrosion. Being that it is on under the vehicle, trailer hitches do kind of get beat up, so we want to make sure we protect that metal so it doesn't get rusty when it rains. So adding a trailer hitch to your Regal here, it's going to be an excellent option because it's going to make your vehicle that much more versatile. Now we can obviously use a trailer hitch for towing, but if we wanted to free up some space inside the vehicle for us and the family on those long road trips, or if we just simply wanted to hit the trails, we could easily attach either a hitch mounted bike rack or hitch mounted cargo carrier. So in regards to towing, our trailer hitch here is going to provide us with a 3,500 pound gross trailer weight rating. That's the amount we can pull outward on our trailer. It also has a 350 pound tongue weight rating. That's going to be the downward force on the receiver tube. Now keep in mind, these capacities are for the hitch only, which is actually tested separately of the vehicle. Therefore, you need to verify your vehicle's towing capacity in the owner's manual and abide by the lower of the two rated components, whether that's the hitch or the vehicle. So the receiver tube size here of our trailer hitch is going to be 1¼ inch by 1¼ inch, which is an industry standard. There's going to be plenty of those hitch mounted accessories to choose from, such as ball mounts, bike racks, and cargo carriers. There really is a great variety for the size hitch here. And if you need any of those accessories, make sure you check out our selection here at eTrailer. So if we take a closer look at the side of the receiver tube, you're going to see a half inch diameter hole, and that's going to be used with a 1/2 inch diameter hitch pin and clip. So the hitch pin and clip is going to be used to secure your accessory. Now keep in mind, this doesn't actually come with the trailer hitch, and that's because a lot of those accessories like ball mounts, bike racks, cargo carriers, they usually come with their own hitch pin and clip, so you shouldn't need to worry about buying this separately. But we do carry these here as well if you need one. And then welded to the bottom of the receiver tube, we're going to have our safety chains, or safety chain loops. Those are going to work great with both the larger clevis style hooks as well as the smaller S-type. So now we got a couple of measurements for you guys here. They're going to help you when you're selecting your hitch mounted accessories. The first one is the distance from the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube. You're looking at about 10½ inches there, and that'll be useful when you're selecting a ball mount. That way you can make sure you get the correct rise and drop to tow your trailer level. Now if you're concerned with ground clearance, the distance from the ground to the bottom of the trailer hitch is looking at right about 9 inches. So a little bit down there, but not so much that I think you guys are really going to have any issues with scraping the hitch. And then finally, the distance from the center of the hitch pin hole to the outside edge of the bumper. Now this one is tucked back there quite a ways, so I'm going to call that right at 5 inches from the center of the hitch pin hole to the outer edge of the bumper. Therefore, you'll need to keep that in mind when you're selecting your accessories such as a bike rack or cargo carrier. That way you can make sure that they'll clear, or that they'll clear the vehicle when they're folded up. So in regards to installation, I wouldn't say this one is terrible. It may not be as easy as some of the other ones. I'd probably rate it about middle grade as far as difficulty goes. I wouldn't say anything's too particularly challenging. It's going to take you some time. There's some tight spaces to work there, so a little bit of fighting back and forth, but overall I wouldn't say it's too bad. It's definitely not something you guys at home can't do yourselves. Just a basic tool set for this really. You may need a torque wrench if you don't have one, in which case you'll have to rent this from a local auto parts store, but that's actually free of charge in most cases. But yeah, aside from that, everything's pretty straightforward. We are going to be doing it in the air, but that's certainly not required. You can still do this on the ground. Just going to make things a little bit harder for you. But aside from that, let's go ahead and walk you through the entire process now. Set aside around 1 to 3 hours or so, depending on your experience level. So to start our installation, we need to go ahead and lower the exhaust to allow for clearance to put our hitch into place. So it's pretty easy to do this. We're going to grab a 15mm socket, and if we look under the vehicle, directly behind the rear bumper, you can see our exhaust hanger bracket. We're actually going to remove this. There's going to be 2 bolts. So we'll go ahead and take those out with a 15mm socket. Once we have both of those bolts out, we're just going to lift that bracket off those 2 clips there. So now we have this side loose. We're just going to repeat that same thing on the other side. Now your instructions do make note to support the exhaust, but there's actually already a couple braces under the vehicle that are going to support it, so we don't need to do any additional things there. So now we need to remove the heat shields from either side. These heat shields are rather large and they're held in place with sort of these funky fasteners. They're called speed nuts. So we're just going to take a pair of needle nose pliers. We're just going to stick them in the cutouts there and just spin them off. Just like that. So there's actually several of these located throughout the outer edges here of the heat shield. So we're just going to repeat that same process there of removing each of these until our heat shield is going to come down and out. So we have to actually do this on both sides as well. So here's what the heat shield looks like when we have it removed. So this is actually the passenger side. It was a little bit different than the driver's side. There was still a couple of those speed nuts, but there was also 2 hex bolts on the outside there. But aside from that, everything was the same. So you'll just need to get a 13mm socket to remove those hex bolts. But once we have the heat shield removed, we need to trim. So pretty much in the center of the heat shield here, you're going to have to take out a little strip here for the flange of our hitch to mount up to the frame there. So you don't want it sandwiching the heat shield. So you want to make sure you go ahead and trim out that section there. Now there's a pretty good diagram in your instructions on how to trim this out in regards to the amount we need to trim. So I recommend you guys just take a second to look at that, and you can make your lines here. And usually just using some tin snips works best for these. You can use some other tools, but heavy duty shears would work. Really, tin snips though are going to be your best thing there. So go ahead and remove that material there on both sides. And once that's done, we'll go ahead and reinstall the heat shields. So once we have our heat shields reinstalled, we need to feed our hardware into the frame to secure our hitch. So in order to do that, we're going to locate the access hole in the bottom of the frame here. We're going to take our fish wire. We're going to place the coiled end through one of these 2 holes here. These are the holes we want our hardware to come out of. So you'll take the coiled end and fish it through the access hole. And then I'm going to take a spacer block, place it over the coiled end, and then thread on our carriage bolt. Once we have it threaded on, we're going to shove the spacer block through the frame, and then our carriage bolt, and now we're just going to pull straight down. So we're going to do that for our other hole here, and then our 2 holes on the other side. Next, we're going to come to these little fascia tabs here, securing the bottom part of the fascia to the back of the vehicle. So we're going to have 2 screws. We're going to remove both of these with a 7mm socket. And the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to be trimming about 1/4 inch off the bottom of this fascia tab. So we need to do this on both sides. So now with an extra set of hands, we can raise the hitch into position. You're going to come up and over the exhaust first. So now that we have our hardware in place, we're going to go ahead and re-secure our exhaust brackets here onto the vehicle. Now you'll notice there's a standoff tab on the trailer hitch, which is going to line up with one of the holes for our exhaust hanger bracket. So you're just going to simply be sandwiching that hanger over the bracket. So now that we have all of our hardware installed, we just loosely have our nuts threaded on there. I was actually having some trouble getting the hitch to fit all the way up. The top of the hitch isn't necessarily flush to the bottom of the frame. It was just too tight of a fit. I don't know if that's due to how the trailer hitch is welded or just how it fits on the vehicle. So we were just having a little bit of trouble with that. We actually just used a pull jack to push up on this flange here. And that gave us a little bit more accessibility, and we were able to thread on the nuts a couple more turns so it's more secure. But nevertheless, once we get all 4 of those nuts on, we're going to take an 11/16 inch socket and begin snugging them down. And then we're going to torque them to the specifications, your instructions. Now the instructions do say to re-secure the exhaust here before we tighten these, but I really don't see how that's possible because we're not going to have any room at all when we lift that exhaust back up. So we're going to go ahead and do this now. So now we're ready to resecure our exhaust here. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the 2 bolts in your kit here, these M10 bolts, along with this spacer block here. Now the other spacer blocks in the frame look a little bit different. We only have 2 of these though, so it should be easy to distinguish them. And they should be the only 2 we have left. So basically how this is going to work is we're just going to lift this bracket up and align it over the holes there in the bumper beam. And we're going to use one of our new bolts here to secure it. And this is just going to hold it in place. So we get that one started. Then we're going to take our spacer block here. We're going to sneak that behind this exhaust hanger bracket in between the bumper beam flange. And this is going to act as a spacer to offset the tab coming off the hitch. So it is kind of difficult to hold that up there. So I'm just using my fingertips now just to sort of align it the best I can. Looks like I've trapped it in there now. So I'll just go ahead and continue threading in the bolt. So I've got our 2 bolts started here on this side. Before I start tightening these down, I'm going to jump on with the other side and we're just going to repeat those same few steps, just getting our bolts started for now. And now all that's left to do is to secure our fascia tabs here to the bottom of the vehicle using our factory hardware. But now that we have that secure, that's going to do it today for our look and installation of the CURT Trailer Hitch receiver here on our 2018 Buick Regal Tour X.